Hi, and welcome to the third episode of Virtual Paddock. Lots of races since the last episode, the Formula 1 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, along with the support series, then Macau with Formula 3, GT3, WTCR and the Motorcycle Grand Prix, and lastly WEC with the 6 hours of Shanghai. Also in sim racing, big RaceRoom update on Wednesday, so I'm gonna talk about that. But before I go to those topics, I want to mention that there's also a Virtual Paddock blog now, and you can find it at virtualpaddock.blogspot.com. Anyway, let's get going. Starting again with Formula 1, final race of 2018, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And the weekend already started with a bang on Thursday. It's been rumored for a long time, but now it's finally been confirmed. Williams have announced that Robert Kubica will be racing for them in 2019. Obviously fans went nuts over this, and I mean that in a very positive way. Williams' website was actually down for a while after the announcement, just because they got so much traffic and the servers couldn't handle it. It's definitely one of the most incredible comeback stories in Formula 1. And just like many others, I'm also really excited for 2019 and how Kubica will do. But at first there was still one race left for 2018. Last Grand Prix for Fernando Alonso, so he ran a special one-off livery with yellow, red and blue stripes on the engine cover. Then qualifying, Hamilton took pole ahead of Bottas. Second row were Vettel and Raikkonen, followed by Ricciardo and Verstappen. And best of the rest was Romain Grosjean. Then the race, big crash halfway through the first lap. Grosjean and Hülkenberg came together, and Hülkenberg rolled and landed upside down. Safety car obviously. Hülkenberg was okay, but it took him quite some time to get out. He actually said on team radio, "I'm hanging here like a cow." The stewards then later ruled it a racing incident. Hamilton made a very early pit stop on lap 7, doing a virtual safety car after Raikkonen had stopped on the main straight. Lewis switched to super softs and went to the end in those. Whereas Ricciardo did pretty much the opposite strategy. He went for an extremely long first stint until lap 33. Now, before the race, the weather forecast had actually shown a 40% chance of rain. And at around lap 25, there actually were a few drops. But really just that, just a few drops. It didn't affect things in any way really, and was pretty much gone after 5 minutes. Up front, Hamilton easily controlling the pace, and his teammates somewhat lacking pace. Bottas actually ended up doing a 2-stop, though the second one was more of a security stop after he had a bit of contact with Verstappen. And Mercedes just didn't want to risk a puncture or anything. Not much else happening for the rest of the race. Hamilton won, ahead of Vettel and Verstappen. Ricciardo in 4th, just missed out on a podium in his last race for Red Bull. And in a similar fashion, Alonso, who came 11th, just missed out on a point in his last Formula 1 race. Beautiful scenes after the race, by the way. Vettel and Hamilton doing donuts together on the cooldown lap, waiting for Alonso, and then the three of them all driving to the main straight together, and then triple donuts. Very emotional moment, and great to see. And that's it for the 2018 season. I wrote a full review of the season on the blog. Then on Monday, Toro Rosso finally announced their second driver for 2019. And it'll be Alexander Albon, which means that next year there'll be 2 driver comebacks and 4 rookies, including Giovinazzi as a rookie, by the way, even though he already did 2 Formula 1 races in 2017. It's similar to Gasly and Hartley being considered rookies this year, even though both already had their debut in late 2017. And the 3 other 2019 rookies are all graduates from Formula 2 this year. Albon, of course, plus Russell and Norris. So essentially, we know the full 2019 grid now. Now, Stroll to Force India hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but no one really doubts it anymore. And Stroll even tested for Force India at the post-season tire test this week. Taking just a quick look at the support series, in Formula 2, George Russell is the new champion. Already wrapped it up with a win in the feature race at Abu Dhabi, though you could even say that he already won it at the start of that race, because Albon stalled. Joining Russell on the podium were Markelov and Giotto, and in the sprint race it was Antonio Fuoco finishing first, followed by Lando Norris and Roberto Merhi. And as a result, Norris actually ended up finishing second in the championship, with Albon down to third. And for next year, Russell's seat at ART will be taken by Nikita Mazepin. With Nick de Vries as his teammate, he's moving there from Prema Theodore Racing. And the free seat at Prema, that will be taken by Mick Schumacher. In GP3, Antoine Hubert became the last ever champion. Also managed to already win the title in the feature race by finishing third, behind Leonardo Polcini and David Beckmann. And the last ever race winner in GP3 was Nikita Mazepin in the sprint race, ahead of Jake Hughes and Simo Laaksonen. Just some quick Formula 1 related sim racing news, because shortly before the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, Fanatec presented 2 new Formula 1 licensed rims, the Club Sport F1 Esports wheel and the Club Sport F1 2018 wheel. The difference is that the F1 2018 wheel has a lot more buttons and dials, so it's kind of like a real Formula 1 steering wheel. Both wheels compatible with pretty much all Fanatec wheelbases, though also both wheels not compatible with the Xbox One. The F1 2018 wheel is a limited edition though, and it's already sold out. But the F1 Esports wheel, that's still available. Now, the weekend before the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was probably the most insane race weekend of the year. I'm talking of course about the 2018 Macau Grand Prix, because I would say that Macau is pretty much the most challenging and unforgiving street circuit in the world. Even more so than Monaco, I would say. Biggest event in Macau, obviously Formula 3. Defending race winner from 2017 was Dan Ticktum, though last year he really only won it because the 2 guys in front of him crashed in the final corner on the last lap. But now for this year, Ticktum won the qualifying race from pole, ahead of Ericsson and Eilert. And then for the main race, Ticktum leading from the start. Great start also by Fenestras, from 4th on the grid right into P2. Now, this being Macau, it probably won't surprise you that there was a safety car already after 3 corners, because several cars crashed at Lisboa. The safety car then went in again at the end of lap 3, but sadly, horrible crash immediately afterwards. On the straight towards Lisboa, Sofia Flörsch hit the back of Jehan Daruvala. She lost control, went airborne, struck Schutze-Boy's car, and then she crashed through the catch fence. And the result was a red flag, obviously, over an hour. Then afterwards, lap 5 and 6 were still under safety car, and this time after the restart everything stayed clean. Ericsson passed Fenestras into Lisboa for P2, and there was another safety car period after Inem Ahmed crashed out on lap 9. Went back to racing for lap 12. Ticktum put in the fastest lap soon afterwards with a 2:10.246, and he also won the race for the 2nd year in a row. And joining him on the podium were Ericsson and Fenestras. 4th was Jake Hughes, and 5th was this year's Formula 3 European champion, Mick Schumacher. But obviously, everyone was worried about Sofia Flörsch. A lot of uncertainty at first, for quite a few hours, and eventually it was revealed that she suffered a spinal fracture. And she sent out a tweet in the evening saying that she's fine, but the next day she had an 11-hour surgery. Everything went well. Luckily there was no damage to her spinal cord, so she won't end up paralyzed or anything. I wish her all the best for a quick recovery. Also to the marshal and the 2 photographers who were injured as well. And by the way, it's Sophia's 18th birthday tomorrow, so be sure to wish her a happy birthday. Also racing in Macau was GT3, the FIA GT World Cup. Last year's winner was Eduardo Mortara in the Mercedes AMG GT3. Though to be honest, the 2017 GT race is mostly known for that huge first lap crash in the qualifying race, completely blocking the track. You've probably seen the video. If not, I can link it in the description. Anyway, 2018 now. Qualifying race, Augusto Farfus won in the BMW M6, ahead of the 2 Mercedes of Raffaele Marciello and Mauro Engel. Big crash at Mandarin Corner during the first lap, when Mortara made contact with Lawrence Vanthoor in the Porsche. And Vanthoor spun and hit the wall pretty hard, and actually didn't get to compete in the main race because of the damage. There was just 14 drivers actually competing. Luckily this time, clean start and clean first lap. Bit of a moment for Earl Bamber on the second lap. He touched the inside wall in one of the fast and tight bends. But no damage, didn't even seem to have cost him any time. And Jeremy, no safety car in the main race by the way. Marciello made a mistake on lap 8 though. He missed his braking point into Lisboa. Lost a lot of places. So was Engel and Mortara in second and third now. But Farfus still in the lead. And after 18 laps, Augusto Farfus won the 2018 FIA GT World Cup, ahead of Engel and Mortara. Another series at Macau was WTCR. Now, unlike the other categories, for which Macau is a standalone event and not part of any championship, it actually was a normal championship round for WTCR. So they also used their standard weekend format with 3 races. Huff on pole in race 1, but didn't get the best start. Ori was down to 3rd after Mandarin, and the new leader was Ivan Muller. First safety car after 3 corners, and after the restart, a lead change on lap 3 when J.K. Vernet passed Ivan Muller. Then lap 5, red flag. Gordon Shedden spun at Police Bend, and his car was blocking the track. Luckily it didn't cause a pileup like what happened in GT3 last year. But no one could get past, so all the cars behind him had to stop. Restart 18 minutes later, lap 6 still on the safety car, and back to normal racing for lap 7. The rest of the race wasn't too eventful. 2 laps were added to the race distance, so instead of 8 laps as originally scheduled, the race ran for 10 laps. And the winner was J.K. Vernet, followed by Ivan Muller and Robert Huff. For race 2, the pole sitter was Timo Scheider, led from the start. There was a position change for P2 though, with Vervish overtaking Chacon. And again a crash within the first 3 corners. Several drivers out of the race. Tacquini, Oriola, Vernet and Michelic. No safety car though. And the key moment of the race happened on lap 4, when Vervish overtook Scheider round the outside through Mandarin for the lead. Generally top 4 all very close, and on both lap 5 and lap 6, Muller actually tried to get Scheider for P2. No success though. Scheider kept it. And that's how they finished after 8 laps. Vervish won, Scheider second, and Muller third. Then race 3, Huff on pole again, and once again losing the lead immediately. This time to Esteban Guerrieri. And for once, lap 1 went entirely clean. Not even a yellow flag or anything. So did lap 2. But then on lap 3, Aurélien Panis crashed, so the safety car came out. Bit of a funny sight on lap 5 actually, where it wasn't just the safety car leading the field, but the recovery truck leading in front of the safety car. Then restart for lap 6, top 3 keeping very close to each other, but never enough for a full attack. And a few laps later, on lap 11, Vernet went into the barriers at Lisboa. Result was yellow flags. And on the next lap, Charles Sabo crashed pretty heavily in the last corner, and that brought out the safety car for lap 13, which was the final lap. And again, that was 2 laps longer than originally scheduled. So the race finished behind the safety car. Winner was Esteban Guerrieri, and joining him on the podium were Robert Huff and Norman Michaelis. But the happiest man was probably the one who finished 10th in this race, Gabriele Tarquini, because he won the championship ahead of Muller and Guerrieri. Now, besides several 4-wheel classes, there also was the Macau Motorcycle Grand Prix. Last year's winner was Glenn Owen, but he didn't compete this year. The winner from 2015 and 2016 did though, and that was Peter Hickman. And he also took a dominant pole position this year, 1.14 seconds ahead of Michael Rutter in second place. At the start of the race, Hickman did a bit of a huff, meaning that he lost the lead to Michael Rutter. Clean opening lap, and then on lap 4 we got to see an overtake for the lead, when Hickman managed to get past Rutter between Reservoir and Mandarin. Now originally the race had been scheduled for 12 laps, but then on lap 10, Phil Crow and Ben Wiley crashed. Red flag, and they didn't restart anymore, so count back to the end of lap 8. So Hickman won, ahead of Rutter and Jessup. 4th was Danny Webb, and 5th was Gary Johnson, which made the top 5 all British, but then 6th was Horst Zeiger from Austria. Perfect ending to a great year for Hickman, because earlier this year he already won the Superstock TT and the Senior TT at the Isle of Man. Now, along with Macau, there was another big event in China on the same weekend, the WC6 of Shanghai. Last race for this year, and before the race, there already was a change in the GTE AM Championship lead. Both Dempsey Proton cars had been disqualified in Fuji, because it turned out that their data loggers had been manipulated to add 2 seconds to their actual pit stop times. And following the disqualification, they did not cooperate with any further investigations, and as a penalty, they lost all their points earned so far this season. So in the GTE AM Championship, it's Project 1 leading now. But for the race itself at Shanghai, it was a wet race. Started on the safety car, and generally during the first 4 hours, several safety car periods and even red flags. Most of the actual racing only happened in the last 2 hours, and the result was obviously another double victory for Toyota, with the number 7 car, with Conway, Kobayashi and Lopez crossing the line first. In LMP2, it was the number 38 Jackie Chan DC racing car with Tung, Aubrey and Ricalmi taking the win. GTE Pro winners were Marcus Sorensen and Nicky Thiem in the number 95 Aston Martin, and GTE AM was won by the number 77 Dempsey Proton Porsche with Campbell, Reed and Anlauer. And those points do count for the championship now. By the way, Porsche have now taken the lead in the GTE Manufacturers Championship, because their GTE Pro cars came 2nd and 3rd in this race, whereas the previous leaders, Ford, they only managed 7th and 9th. Coming to sim racing, there was a big update for RaceRoom earlier this week, on Wednesday. New features and new content. and most notably a new class, GTR4. Starting out with 3 cars: KTM Crossbow GT4, Lotus Evora GT4, and Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport MR. So I did a short test drive with each of them, and they're pretty equal in terms of overall pace, but with very different strengths and weaknesses to each car. Most powerful one is the Cayman, and thus also the fastest on the straights. But it's not quite as agile in the corners as the others. The Evora and the Crossbow do better in those, but even they are still very different. Biggest strength of the Lotus are the slow corners. Very quick direction change there. Gets a bit nervous in the faster corners though, where the KTM is the most planted. But then the KTM is in turn slightly weaker in the slower corners. Nothing dramatic, it's just a bit less direct and has a slightly... Nothing dramatic, it's just a bit less direct and has slightly more entry understeer. Also, regarding the Cayman, the GT4 Club Sport class, which was already released last year, that one finally got proper liveries and was renamed to Cayman Trophy by Mentor Racing. It's a slightly different car from the one in the GTR4 class. So essentially they split the Cayman. It doesn't count as a new Porsche. Out of the 9 Porsches being planned overall, there's still 6 left, and 3 of them are planned to still be released this year. In terms of features, for single player they've now ditched the novice, amateur and get real settings, and instead you can set the driving assist individually. ABS and traction control also have a factory option now. It's like an Assetto Corsa. You'll get them if the real car has them, but you can also turn them off completely as well. And that's it for the 3rd episode of Virtual Paddock. Hope you enjoyed it. No big race events ahead before the next episode, so I'll probably focus on other talking points and generally more on sim racing in that one. But until then, use the downforce, and see you soon.